This is a short tutorial on adding colors and images to the default cube in Blender. So, start up Blender. We've got our default cube. In the 3D view, you have some default panels attached to it. The Tools panel I won't need, so I'll toggle that with T. There's also a Properties panel you can toggle with N and set the size and rotation, but we won't need that either, so I'll toggle it off with N. And I'm going to need a couple of cubes. I'll go up, I'll reposition my cursor, click over here with my left mouse button. I will add a mesh, another cube over here. Left mouse button, I'll move the cursor over there. Add a mesh, I'll add one more cube. Now, to tell these cubes apart, I should give them some kind of useful names. I've got a few panels by default open over here. The top is the outliner panel. Make that a little bit larger. Here are my cubes. I'd like to rename them. So I'll call this the blue cube. Call this next cube, maybe I'll call that the marble cube. And this final cube, I'll rename that a hexagon cube. These names will become more apparent why I chose them shortly. Right, first the blue cube. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to, you guessed it, make it blue. For this, I'll use the Properties panel, which is by default right below the Outliner panel. If it's not open, you can always change one panel into the Properties panel. Here we have it. It has a default material already set up. I'm going to change the color. If you go down here to Diffuse, I'll click on that. I'll make it blue. Easy as that. Next, I'll choose another cube. I'll right-click to select it, and I want to add a material. And I would like to apply a texture to that material. Now it turns out Blender has a lot of built-in textures, so I'll use one of those for this one. This is the marble cube, so I bet you can guess which texture I'm going to use. That's right, I'll use the marble texture. Now I'd really like to see what this looks like, so I'd like to preview it as a material. And since my object is a cube, I'll see what it looks like as a cube. That looks pretty nice. But you notice I don't actually see a change over here. The reason is, well, I haven't rendered the scene yet. For simple colors, Blender will do that automatically. But if I want to see what this looks like, I need to render the image, F12, or go to the menu. And I can see what my marble cube looks like. The shot isn't lined up too well, but that's okay. We'll worry about that later. Press Escape, go back to my 3D view. Now finally, I want to do something interesting with this cube. Rather than use a default texture supplied by Blender, I'd like to apply my own image to it. So, I will first go to the Properties menu, select the Material tab, create a new material, and I'll add something interesting to that. So I'll go over to Texture, I'll click on a new texture. This time I'm going to select Image or Movie, going to apply an image. I'm going to minimize these for now so it's easier to see what options we have available. I don't see anything yet. That's because I haven't chosen an image. So under the Image submenu, I'll go to Open. On my desktop, I have some nice hexagons here. I'll double-click that. This is what it looks like. Click on Material. Well, my material is a cube. And notice that it looks a little bit warped. That's because I'm not projecting it onto the cube the right way. This file is just being top-down projected onto the cube. So what I'd like to do is take a look at the mapping. I don't want to project this just strictly from the top. I want to project it from all sides of the cube. There we go. It's going to look a little bit better. Now, the specific texture I used is an example of a seamless texture. If I repeat it, it lines up with itself along the boundaries. So I'm going to close this mapping. I'm also going to go to Image Mapping. I'd like to repeat this texture multiple times. Maybe I'll increase this along the X direction of the Y direction. You notice I've got more copies of it. Now it looks like a honeycomb style cube. All right, again, I can't see it over here. I actually need to render this scene to see what the changes look like. Let's go to Render and Render Image. Takes a while to set it up. It's a lot of image processing. There you go. Looks pretty nice.